All right, let's dive into the NBA world because things are heating up fast as we move closer and closer to opening night. We are less than a month away from that first official tip-off when the Boston Celtics go head-to-head with the Philadelphia 76ers, and you can feel that buzz in the air. Fans are restless, players are grinding through training camp, and the rumor mill is churning like crazy. And just when it felt like the focus was solely on Boston's final preparations, a curveball hit the league yesterday that sent shockwaves through front offices everywhere. It might not look like a Celtic story on the surface, but once you start pulling at the threads, it absolutely ties back to Boston and could shape the way the season unfolds. The news, of course, is about Fred VanVleet. The veteran guard went down with a brutal ACL tear while Houston was in the middle of one of those preseason bonding trips, the kind of exercises teams love to do before a new campaign. It immediately brought back memories of when Doc Rivers and Kevin Garnett brought that Ubuntu culture to the Celtics, taking the guys overseas to lock in together. Well, Houston tried to do something similar in the Bahamas, and instead of chemistry, they came home with heartbreak. VanVleet is out for the entire year, and for a Rockets squad that had carefully constructed a roster meant to balance youthful explosiveness with steady veteran leadership, this is an absolute gut punch. Now, whether you personally think Fred was still at his peak or already slipping past his prime at age 32, the truth is he was the steadying hand in that locker room. He was the adult presence on a team full of high-flying but still raw athletes. Yes, Dillon Brooks had his moments as a vocal leader, but VanVleet was the one spacing the floor, keeping the ball movement alive, and making sure the offense didn't collapse when the young guys lost their rhythm. Houston's biggest weakness the past few seasons was obvious: no reliable outside shooting. They loaded up on slashers and athletes, but defenses just dared them to pull the trigger from deep. VanVleet was supposed to fix that, and now, just weeks before opening night, he's gone. Look at their current depth chart in the backcourt, and you realize how dire it is. They've got Reed Shepherd, a high draft pick who barely saw the floor in his rookie year, and whose defensive shortcomings already made him a question mark under Ime Udoka. We know Udoka's philosophy: if you don't defend, you don't play. That was the case in Boston, and it hasn't changed. Suddenly, this young guard might be thrust into a starting role before he's proven anything at the NBA level. Then you've got Aaron Holiday, who's bounced around the league and carved out minutes as a scrappy reserve, but he's not the kind of player you want running your offense for 30 minutes a night on a team with playoff aspirations. That's the entire guard rotation right now. No Drew Holiday, no Justin Holiday, just Aaron trying to keep the family name alive. So what do the Rockets do? They could experiment with jumbo lineups, sliding Amen Thompson to the point and surrounding him with wings like Dorian Finney-Smith and Jabari Smith Jr., while Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun handle the frontcourt duties. On paper, that's an intimidating group of length and versatility, but it's also risky. Thompson showed flashes of playmaking late last season, especially in the playoffs, but leaning on him full-time to orchestrate an offense is a massive leap. KD is still KD. Jabari continues to grow. Sengun is crafty in the post, but you can't hide the lack of reliable perimeter shooting. The Rockets are heavy with big bodies: Clint Capella, Steven Adams, Tidy Washington Jr., but they're frighteningly thin when it comes to true guards. The timing of VanVleet's injury makes it even worse. Houston is hard-capped under the new collective bargaining agreement rules, sitting above that first tax apron. That means they literally cannot sign replacements or make meaningful roster changes until December 15th. Until then, their only option is to wait it out and then start working the phones for trades. That's where things start to intersect with teams like Boston, because Houston's desperation could turn into opportunity for other contenders. A name already floating in these discussions is Anthony Simons. He's sitting in Portland with a $27 million salary and questions about his long-term fit as the Blazers lean into their youth movement. Simons is one of the league's purest shooters, a guy who can create off the dribble and stretch defenses far beyond the arc. For Houston, he makes all the sense in the world. For Udoka, maybe not, considering defense has never been Simons' calling card. But desperate teams sometimes have to take risks, and the Rockets are absolutely desperate for shooting. Now, making the math work is tricky. Houston can't just sign him. They'd have to trade for him. They've got draft capital from the Brooklyn and Phoenix deals, but matching salaries is the obstacle. A package built around Steven Adams and Dorian Finney-Smith could theoretically work, but then Houston is sacrificing size and depth just to plug their backcourt hole. Would they really trade away two rotation players for a high-usage guard who doesn't defend? That's the gamble. And on the flip side, would Boston get involved as a third team, or perhaps become a landing spot for Adams? Imagine him as a rugged backup big behind Kristaps Porzingis, someone who can bang in the paint during a long playoff series. Not the worst idea. If Houston decides Simons is too pricey or doesn't fit Udoka's system, smaller moves are also possible. Malik Monk's name has been floated, and even role players like Sam Hauser from Boston could become attractive if the Rockets simply want reliable shooting at a lower cost. Hauser won't run an offense, but if you just need someone to space the floor for Durant and Sengun, he checks that box. In that kind of deal, Boston could snag some extra draft compensation or a useful veteran without giving up a core piece. Again, none of this happens until mid-December, but when that window opens, the Rockets are absolutely going to be aggressive. For the Celtics, watching all this unfold is fascinating. They don't need to panic or make rash decisions, but keeping an eye on Houston's desperation might unlock mid-season opportunities. Brad Stevens has been clear. Flexibility is everything. The front office already trimmed salary commitments by letting veterans like Al Horford and Luke Kornet walk, and they're setting the table for potential upgrades around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as the season evolves. If Houston wants to move draft picks or useful role players just to get a stopgap guard, Boston can position itself as a partner that comes out ahead. And while we're on the subject of Tatum, his name popped up in an interesting way this week. An anonymous Western Conference assistant coach told ESPN that Tatum could very well be the best player in the NBA by the year 2030. Think about that. A 6'10" forward who can hit threes, attack the rim, and draw fouls at will. There just aren't many guys built like that. By that point, he'll be entering his early 30s, right as some of today's stars like Giannis Antetokounmpo and Nikola Jokic may be slowing down or shifting their focus elsewhere. It's bold, but not outlandish, to picture Tatum as the league's top dog in that window. The recovery from his Achilles injury remains the big question mark, but every report out of Boston has been positive. He's attacking the rehab. He's stayed locked in mentally, and the energy around him suggests he's going to come back stronger. This might even be an opportunity for him to evolve his game, adding more post work or expanding his arsenal as a shooter. Sometimes these setbacks force superstars to reinvent themselves, and if Tatum finds new wrinkles to complement his already elite scoring, that projection of him being the best in the league starts to look a lot more realistic. That's why Boston's entire approach right now makes sense. They're setting themselves up for the long haul, waiting for Tatum's full return, and keeping enough flexibility to pounce when the right star or role player shakes loose from another team's chaos. Houston losing Van Vliet might seem like just another injury story, but in this league, dominoes always fall. And if the Rockets get desperate, don't be surprised if the Celtics find themselves in the middle of it, making moves that strengthen their title chase while other teams scramble to survive. When you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the ripple effects of this offseason are already starting to feel different from years past. For the first time in a while, it seems like the league is drawing a harder line on extensions and big money commitments. Just listening to the conversations around the NBA right now, you can sense a shift. Owners are pointing to the new collective bargaining agreement as the reason to clamp down. Front offices are hesitant to throw max money at guys who aren't clear-cut superstars, and even established names are starting to wonder if the golden era of monster deals is tightening up. For Celtics fans, this matters a lot, because the way the market shifts will directly impact how Boston maneuvers around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown while keeping a championship core alive. Take the case of Trae Young in Atlanta. He's been the face of that franchise. He's carried the Hawks to playoff runs. And yet the tone from the organization is, show us something this year before we back up the truck. That's a risky stance when you've got a player who's given everything to the team, but it reflects the reality of the East right now. Atlanta isn't sure how good they are. The conference has openings all over the place, and Trey knows he's earned a payday. The Hawks front office, though, wants proof that this roster can actually contend. If they flame out again, suddenly you have a star wondering if his best years are being wasted. And if Atlanta isn't ready to commit, then the trade rumors are going to roar back louder than ever. Then there's Karl-Anthony Towns, maybe the most intriguing situation on the horizon. Minnesota has tried to build around him for years, pairing him with Rudy Gobert in that double big experiment. And while it produced some regular season success, you can feel the cracks forming. Towns will soon be due for a new deal, and if the Timberwolves aren't convinced he's the guy to take them over the top, the trade market is going to be waiting with open arms. New York is the obvious team to watch here. The Knicks have loaded up on talent, with Jalen Brunson leading the way and Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby adding defense and versatility. But let's be honest, if that group racks up 50 regular season wins only to bow out in the second round again, the pressure in Madison Square Garden is going to hit the ceiling. That's when names like Towns start to get whispered as the missing piece. And if Minnesota decides not to extend him, the chatter will only get louder. Boston's interest in these kinds of scenarios is straightforward. They don't have to make the first move, they just need to be positioned for when opportunities come knocking. If a player like Towns, or even someone like Lauri Markkanen becomes available, the Celtics are one of the few franchises with the combination of assets, cap flexibility, and a clear pathway to contention that could swing a deal. Remember, Utah has already been open about retooling around younger players, and even though Markkanen signed his extension before last season, the writing is on the wall that he might not be part of their long-term plan. That's the kind of player Stevens and company will monitor, just waiting for the right timing to strike. And while other teams wrestle with whether to hand out extensions, Boston can sit comfortably with the knowledge that they've already locked up their superstar in Brown and have a clear plan to do the same with Tatum. The ripple effect of all these situations is that some franchises will hesitate to spend, and when they do, they'll look for cheaper alternatives. That opens the door for contenders to scoop up value. Guys like Austin Reeves or Rui Hachimura on the Lakers could become available if Los Angeles decides to reshuffle the deck. Even Kevin Durant's future has a question mark hanging over it, because despite all the noise around Houston, he still hasn't put pen to paper on an extension. Imagine if the Rockets' gamble backfires and KD starts to wonder whether they're truly in win-now mode. That's when chaos really starts to spread. For Boston, the smart play is patience. They've already built a roster that can compete at the top of the East, even if the rotation looks a little thinner after trimming salaries this summer. They trust Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis when healthy, and of course Brown to carry the load until Tatum is fully ready. And by keeping their flexibility intact, they've made sure they can pounce on distressed assets from other teams. This is the chess game of the NBA. It's not just about the players you have. It's about being ready when another franchise panics or a star decides he's had enough. That's why the new landscape of extensions is so important. If teams are suddenly less willing to hand out massive deals, then more talent is going to hit the market. It won't always be superstars. Sometimes it'll be high-level role players who can make a huge difference in a playoff run. And the Celtics, by cutting back now, have made themselves a shark circling the water, ready to attack the moment blood appears. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Explosive rumors are swirling around the world of football as whispers from inside the locker room suggest a storm is brewing at one of the top clubs. Sources close to the team claim that head coach MAZZULLA has officially demanded reinforcements, turning up the heat on management, with particular attention directed at Bill Chisholm, the man often seen as the architect of the club's transfer strategy. Insiders hint that MAZZULLA is no longer content with the current squad, believing that urgent acquisitions are necessary if the team is to meet its ambitious targets this season. Word on the street is that MAZZULLA has not only called for new signings, but is reportedly frustrated with what he perceives as delays and half measures from Chisholm's office. The tension, according to sources, has been simmering for weeks, and the coach's demands are being interpreted by some as a direct challenge to the club's hierarchy. Those familiar with the situation say MAZZULLA is particularly focused on strengthening the midfield and defense, hinting at an eye for marquee players who could change the balance of power in upcoming competitions. Fans have been quick to pick up on the rumblings, with social media buzzing over every cryptic interview and subtle comment from the coach. Speculation is rife that if Chisholm fails to deliver, MAZZULLA might take matters into his own hands or escalate his complaints publicly, adding fuel to an already fiery narrative. Meanwhile, pundits are debating whether this is the start of a genuine overhaul or just tactical posturing aimed at securing better deals in the transfer market. One thing seems clear: the pressure is mounting. If the club wants to maintain its edge and satisfy a restless fan base, Chisholm will have to navigate MAZZULLA's demands carefully. Every insider source agrees. This story is far from over, and the coming weeks could reshape the team in ways no one expected. For now, all eyes are on the boardroom, as the rumor mill spins faster than ever, hinting at a summer of surprises, strategic gambles, and inevitably drama. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.